Questions? Can you speak up loud, because I don't think we have enough.
Krishna, you mentioned some of the conflicts, particularly from venture board members who are also representing their limited partners, and particularly in companies that are a little bit older and maybe have an A round, a B round, and a C round. And the A round, people are, hey, it's time to cash out. You know, we've been in here for 5 years. C round guys just wrote the check. They don't want to cash out. Any best practices to try to minimize the conflict that I think most venture board members have because they're representing both their LPs and their companies?
There are no silver bullets at all for that situation, and that tension is something that we will see a lot more, and it manifests in even more complicated ways. Or it's not even just A wants to sell and C wants to hold. There could be instances where C paid a very high price, which is happening quite a bit. So the company will never grow up to that valuation for them to get a return on that money. So C says, let's just sell, because I'm senior in the security stack. Let's just sell so they can get my money back, because I'm not even going to get a return between, I put $50 million at $2 billion valuation. So the company sells for $50 million, I get my money back. The company's got to go for $2 billion and $1 for me to start to get a return. So C says, let's sell. But A and B and C and the CEO says, look, it's a valuable company here. I want to keep playing longer, right? And so let's keep adding value. So that tension, as people have these two interests, is part and parcel of all of it. It is challenging, and hopefully you get to have you maybe do your own vetting and diligence as part of who you are signing up to be with. Thankfully, there's lots of secondary money out there to get partial liquidity and get some people off the cap table. Those are all the elements of the challenges from a CEO's perspective to go navigate and manage interests of shareholders who are also board members who get to have a say on the table. Hopefully, you find on your board somebody who looks like more of a lead director who can drive consensus, who can manage that, who can be your supporter. I think of my role sometimes as also not just support the business, but also do a lot of work in protecting the CEO from different points of view, which might be self-interested or interested in one particular vector. How do you manage and drive consensus on the board is incredibly challenging, and it requires a lot of nuance and balance here. That's just part of the beast.
Yeah. And is there a particular role for the independent director if there's one on the board?
Yeah, I think independent directors can absolutely play the role in terms of managing that, and because they truly do not have a horse in the race in some sense, and they can truly be independent. And a lot of times, good independent directors who play that role in having a trust relationship with all the directors, and that way, not any investor director is perceived as a lead dog here, right? Can indeed play that important, valuable role in the mix here. But well said.
Krishna, you've seen a lot of CEOs. Lynn, Oksana, you've all seen a lot of CEOs. What are some attributes in CEOs that you all look for? You've said many times you place bets on the CEO being there for the journey of the company. What are some things that CEOs do that put them in the category of yes versus the category of no?
Well, for me, because it's important to me to be passionate and excited about the business, I want to know that they are committed to the business. And so you're kind of assessing, by the time I'm talking to them, if they're a potential public company, they're probably already shown to be capable. So which may be different than the very, very early on. But it's like, what really is their motivation? Or they have other things going on? Have they already made their money? Are they going to be committed? So I'm looking for that passion, commitment, excitement, because I know they are driving the organization for success. And so if I want them to sell me, if I'm being recruited to be on a board even though I have like 50 million risk questions I want to ask them, what I really want them is to not just answer my questions, but to say, this is why I don't want you worrying about that, because this is how we're going to win, this is how we're going to do this. I really want to be sold on the business, because a board member also is part of the team that's going to take the business hopefully to success and growth.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I could. It's really, to me, it's going to be about three things. It's this commitment to the business and magnetism, kind of this, because when I come at the early stage, there is nothing. You really are, and you're going to win if you attract the best people and the best investors, the best customers, when you're in such a nascent stage that there is every reason people should tell you why you shouldn't exist, right? So you have to have that passion and confidence and magnetism on the one hand. The flip side of that is CEO that I'm looking at is humility and desire to grow. I mean, they kind of come together, because for them to even get to Krishna and to Lynn, they have to evolve. So if they don't have that, it will be really challenging for them to get there, and as a result, my investment, which is where my fiduciary sits, will never grow. And the last very important one is integrity. When you're creating something, can I trust this person? Do I see this person behaving ethically and treating people with respect, and is the kind of person that, because when they get, I don't want the DNO be deployed because the person gets something
Right.
wrong in this way. Those are the worst things, right? And so for me, like, if you have those three things, but then at my stage, they come in a variety of different packages. That's an excellent question. And I was like, oh, how do I answer that? They just like, there are so many different kinds that could succeed. But to me, unless they have these three traits that I've described, which is the magnetism, humility, and desire to grow, and integrity, nothing else matters.
Well, let me try to add something to be added on some excellent points from Lynn and Oksana here. I think I distill it all into an important trait. Besides, of course, we're looking for big visionaries, big markets. They are super dialed in, hardworking. All those traits that you read about. I look for authenticity immensely in a journey here. Before we invest, very much after we invest, this is a complex game, and it's hard enough trying to figure out what they're really trying to do, what they're trying to say. If they say something to you, do they really mean it, or are they going to give you lip service and not really do it? So authenticity, and of course, and then of course they're trying to figure out, should I play my real card here, or are they going to be judgy and trying to take advantage of me, and maybe I should not be authentic here, and so on. Are all complex dynamics underway here, but hopefully we pierce through that, that zone and end up in an authentic relationship. Really simplifies matters immensely as a part of what needs to happen here, as a part of a trusted value creation pathways here. So look to get to an authentic relationship. Just becomes an incredibly part of being able to find such good people and back up the truck and support them to go build big businesses.
Joseph?
Thank you. So, Oksana, I want to go back to your point about early founders being very much like in kindergarten. So, I too was in kindergarten in the early days with my first company. Mitch was one of my kindergarten teachers. But when you try to explain to an early founder, and this question won't be for all three or any one of the combination, of the importance of a board, I often will, in any situation, refer to movies and popular culture and television shows for a wide range of examples to give, because it's easily, you can easily attribute it to it. And there have been a number of movies recently. Uber with, Super Pumped with Travis Kalanick and his relationship with Bill Gurley, AKA Kyle Chandler, our Austin-based friend. You've got Silicon Valley with Pied Piper and all that they had, their dynamic with the board, even as far back as Pretty Woman in the 90s. Is there a favorite example or show or movie for early young kindergarten founders to explain why you need the Eric Schmidts in the world without necessarily just saying Eric Schmidt, Larry, and Sergey, that they can watch, they can feel, and they can read, or they can really appreciate to anybody?
Well, like, I love the question first. So thank you. I feel like this is a challenge, and because none of the
good.
movies come to mind, I'm gonna look, right? Because the way without movies I was gearing to answer the question is one of my favorite questions. Please keep it secret because sometimes it tests for a variety of things, but it throws people off a bit. It's like, I give you a magic wand, and you're gonna go forward in the future at the time when you're successful. Magic wand is so that anything you want to have happen is happening. And the time in the future, I don't specify. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. The only thing we know for sure is at that moment in time you're successful. Describe what you see. And then I'm also sending people to look at the companies who look like that. And I think the conversation about the board for me will come from that fantasy. Like, do you see a company that you admire that does not have a board that will get them there? And I think that usually drives the point across. So, but I will promise you, I will look for the movies. Unless someone, like, when it feels like we're gonna have drinks in a minute, so like, I know someone has movies, like, I would love to know that.
The movies that are made because they're catastrophes in most cases. Uber and I mean, that was.
WeWork and the Dropout, and I think we have a lot of bad examples, I'm sure. But also that, to Mitch's point, like, good practices make bad headlines. Like, there is nothing exciting about the business runs super normally and everyone shows up and does their job, and the CEO ethical.
Like, never been in a movie.
I'll just say that I looked for it not to be Succession. How about that?
Oksana, I wanted to pick up on kind of this same line of questioning around coaching, founders through that sort of very early, like, seed stage. And I want to talk about stages. Mm-hmm. Are there any corollaries that you guys have observed at the board level where, there's sort of board duties that are consistent regardless of the stage of the company, but sometimes board members whose particular skill set lends itself to earlier stage companies? Or how do you even choose how to adapt yourself through the different phases and stages of growth from those very, very early stages and beyond?
Yeah, I could certainly take on this question, Lisa, because I think, like anyone else, like, if you are the board of the startup, you have to grow and you have to understand, and part of board evaluation, board self-evaluation is a fabulous tool because it kind of aligns with the company's values, and sometimes the world lends yourself, like, how you have to grow. In the case of an AI, you're going to get to the dialogue, but I'm really curious to ping pong this question to Krishna because he had lived that through evolution, so it's really interesting. My experience at the boards were in a certain stage, so I aspire to get to the place where you start with the first check and get the board, the public company. So, like, I'm actually curious, how does, like, zooming on Disco, how did your role and day-to-day had changed early versus later? Like, have you even observed the difference?
Yeah, well, roles of course change as you go into public and you think about elements of from liability through governance and so on. But let me give you my framework of being an effective board member, whether it's a private board or a public board or a nonprofit board. I've got 2 nonprofit boards I'm on, and I think the commonality across all 3 of them is, can people come in truly with a value creation mindset? They're not there because they're entitled to be on the board, and therefore they come in on a board meeting and turn off video and Zoom and just to consume information because they just, why are you in the board? Because, well, I'm entitled to be here. Or I'm on a nonprofit board, why are you here? Because it's the coolest country club to be in, right? And so the key, I would tell you, in all boards, board members I cultivate for, I've got an amazing 2 nonprofits where the Miracle Foundation, which works on foster care in the US and orphanage in India, and I'm also vice chair of the Austin PBS, right? The mindset in all of them is very much about finding board members who will and promise to and have this value creation mindset. Every business, of course, is trying to thrive, and can they articulate when woken up at 3 a.m. suddenly to say, what does this business need to do in the next n number of months or the next year for it to thrive, to achieve its goal? Can people articulate that, think about that, obsess about that, support the CEO? Because look, I also believe, long live the king until the king is dead, right? So as long as the CEO, you're going to support the CEO to be successful. What are they willing to do to help that business thrive? And that's why I'm not using the words about be profitable, grow. A nonprofit could be about taking care of children and supporting its different stakeholders, right? So every company, organization has got its own mission statement, right? And so can you bring value, do you have a value creating mindset for the organization? And then in the case of private companies, you got a value creation mindset and you think about your duties to your shareholders or your LPs. In a public company, you got a value creation mindset and you think about, then you got the corporate governance responsibility associated with that, but you still need to have value creation mindset. Nonprofit board, you create a value creation mindset, and you might be responsible for developmental dollars to help them thrive. But in all of them, the Venn diagram of overlap of what makes a good director is somebody who brings a value creation mindset, and much more that depends on the nature of the organization that they are a board member of. At least that's a perspective.
So my question is right in between, not the early stage and not the public companies. So I'm on 2 boards right now, one very early stage. The one that's a more mature business, I think the challenge that I've seen in both is how do you keep that line of, just nosy in but fingers out? Because in many cases we're being pulled into it a lot. So have you been in a company in that middle space where, let's say 600 million revenues, private company, I'm an independent board member, I am not an investor. So if you have experience with that, I am working on those boundaries there.
I mean, it's communication. I mean, I think you just have to address it right up the front, especially it's a private company. I mean, how much do you want my help? And because I don't want to drive you crazy, CEO. But at the same time, I also don't work full time for you either. And so if I feel like you're asking a lot of me, too much, you're trying to gauge that. Possibly you've got a gap on your team. There's someone else that you need on the team, whether it's a COO or maybe you're asked whatever that role is. So there's a little bit of navel gazing in all this. I mean, just talk about your roles, talk about expectations. It's very, in that sense, it's really very simple. What are your expectations, and maybe in the first year it's one thing, but maybe after that it's something else. But be explicit, direct, talk about it, because if you make assumptions, you're going to be misfiring, and both of you won't be happy. Whether you feel like you're giving too much or not enough or whatever. That's just my best. It's the simplest answer. Just be direct.